Hi everyone, I'm Jim. Welcome to Song Tripping. It's Thursday, August 1st. Thought it would be time for a check-in, do some show and tell, and talk about records I've been listening to over the last 2.5 weeks or more. It feels like it's been a while since my last update. I'm not sure. But I've been listening to different things, and I wanted to cover, first of all, some of these vinyl rips that I've been doing. I've been getting rid of some compilation albums, ripping them, ripping those vinyls, and then adding them to Apple Music and also to YouTube Music, so I can continue to listen to them on occasion. So we'll go through those first of all, and then we'll talk about some vinyl acquisitions and listens, and also some streams that I've been listening to. Okay, I don't think I talked about this one yet. It's Oldies But Goodies Volume 3. And this was, I'll just go and run through the track list on this one. It's just an oldies compilation, but we have the Flamingos, Lovers Never Say Goodbye, the Shields, You Cheated, the Dells, Oh What a Night, Jerry Butler, For Your Precious Love, Little Anthony and the Imperials, Two People in the World, Gene and Eunice, This Is My Story. And then on side 2, the Dell Vikings, Come Go With Me, Huey Smith, Don't You Just Know It, the Eldorados, At My Front Door, Frankie Ford, Sea Cruise, Preston Epps, Bongo Rock, that was a fun one, and Little Richard, Long Tall and Sally. That's Oldies But Goodies Volume 3. It's been ripped and I can stream it now from my own library. Next was 20 Rock Super Hits. And this was I think this was a Columbia House compilation. And I found it in the used bins somewhere along the line. And this is a double album. So let me run down the track list for you here. Side A starts with Argent, Hold Your Head Up. Then we have Donovan, Hurdy-Gurdy Man. The Adrisi Brothers, We've Got to Get It On Again. Mott the Hoople, All the Young Dudes. Santana, Oye Como Va. And then on side B, Janis Joplin, Me and Bobby McGee. The Yardbirds, Heart Full of Soul. Laura Nyro, Wedding Bell Blues. Scott McKenzie, San Francisco, Be Sure to Wear Flowers in Your Hair. David Bromberg, Sharon. On side C, Johnny Nash, I Can See Clearly Now. The Hollies with Long Cool Woman in a Black Dress. Loggins and Messina, House at Pooh Corner. Delaney and Bonnie, Only You Know and I Know. Chai Coltrane, Thunder and Lightning. Mac Davis, Baby Don't Get Hooked on Me. Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show, the cover of the Rolling Stone. Carlos Santana and Buddy Miles, Them Changes. Sly and the Family Stone, Thank You. And Mark Lindsay, Silverbird. Lots of interesting, good stuff on this. It's more of a rock album, rock and pop. But the one standout track, I was just listening to this in the background. I'm ripping, I'm doing other things on the laptop and so forth. But the one song that really stood out, and it's not a song I was too familiar with. I mean, I've heard this compilation before, but sometimes a song will just strike you. It'll slap you in the face. It'll kick you, and in a good way. And I'm like, whoa, this is a really, really good song. And that was the song Thunder and Lightning by Chai Coltrane. So this sent me down a rabbit hole learning a little bit more about the career of Chai Coltrane. She really only had this one big hit in America, issued a couple albums in the early 70s. Her song, her style sounds a little bit like a crossover between Janis Joplin meets Carole King and Laura Nyro and sort of and Elton John, like somewhere in the middle of all that. There's some gospel-y type stuff that she does. Some she's got a really nice voice, and wrote a lot of her own material. I can't remember if she wrote Thunder and Lightning, but this just sent me, onto YouTube and doing some exploration onto Tidal to stream some of her stuff. And As often happens when you make a discovery like this, you start to add things to your want list in terms of maybe vinyl albums or CDs you'd like to get by her, some stuff that's not available by streaming. You can stream those first two albums pretty easily. She continued to make albums into the late 70s and 80s. I'm not sure if she switched labels or not, but the farther you get in her career, the less available some of that stuff becomes on streaming. You can get some compilations, so forth. But anyway, I realized she's still alive. She's still, I think, got something of a career going. But at some point in the 70s or 80s, she moved to Germany. I believe she lives in Germany, in Europe. And she's, I think, by all the evidence that I looked at, she had a lot of popularity in Germany. Like, she has an audience over there. America, not so much, although so many people know Thunder and Lightning. I think it peaked maybe at number 17, but it's a familiar song. But and she maybe had one or two other singles that didn't do as well. But try Coltrane, check her out. Like, she's really good. It's just, there's some great stuff with her performing on YouTube. If you want to see her perform, play the piano, she's really, really good. So she's on my radar now. Next, let's go to a compilation called Smash Sounds. And this is, there's different kinds of compilations out there. And this one is a compilation that comes from a record label. So some compilations will just be like, okay, here's different stuff that's on our label or sub-labels. And then other compilations will be like all over the place, from stuff from different labels. This is an Atco compilation. So here's what's on Smash Sounds. The Capitals, Cool Jerk, Sonny and Cher, The Beat Goes On, Arthur Conley, Sweet Soul Music, Otis Redding, Respect, The Shadows of Night, Gloria, Buffalo Springfield, For What It's Worth, and on side B, Deion Jackson, Love Makes the World Go Round, Percy Wiggins, Book of Memories, Benny King, Stand By Me, King Curtis, Jump Back, Jimmy Hughes, Neighbor Neighbor, and the Coasters, Let's Go Get Stoned. Nice compilation. So I often like these label compilations because they're just sort of, you know, representative of what that label was doing at that time. This was came out in 1967. Next, we have one of those all over the place compilations, and this is Sound Explosion on the Ronco label. 20 original hits by original artists. The problem with some of these Ronco compilations is they cut the songs short, so like they'll fade out a little fast, and you see some of that on this compilation. But I do like the mix of tracks. So here's what's on Sound Explosion. Silver Convention with Fly Robin Fly, Hot Chocolate, You Sexy Thing, ABBA with SOS, Michael Murphy with Wildfire, Faith, Hope, and Charity, To Each His Own, David Geddes, Run Joey Run, Outlaws, There Goes Another Love Song, Austin Roberts with Rocky, Frankie Valli, Swearing to God, and Melissa Manchester, Midnight Blue. On side B, we go to Barry Manilow with Could It Be Magic, Jigsaw with Sky High, Casey and the Sunshine Band, Get Down Tonight, Gwen McCrae, Rockin' Chair, Catfish with Dear Prudence, Ambrosia, Holding On to Yesterday, Ray Barretto, Guarara, Phoebe Snow, Poetry Man, Pure Prairie League, Amy, Neil Sedaka, Laughter in the Rain. And I would say the highlight, well, there's many highlights on this for me, but the one that when I first listened to this I got this at a Goodwill. I remember it was in Delaware I got this at, and I listened to it, and I really got into Dear Prudence by Catfish. I thought that was a wonderful cover of that Beatles song. But there's lots of good stuff here, and this kind of is more in my era when I was awakening to pop music, 1976. So the nostalgia factor is really high for this one. What I don't like is the pressing quality is not that great on these Ronco albums, and also the fading out songs before they're really done sort of sucks. Then we'll go to a fun compilation called Cool and Carefree. Now, this was another type of compilation where you have these sort of tie-in albums that are associated with companies. So this one, Cool and Carefree, has to do with a Carrier air conditioning company, I think it is. Yeah, and you know, the cover art features a large air conditioner with musical instruments leaning on it. So whatever. This is more of a jazz and pop album, and we have a nice mix of songs, which is why I ripped it. The Dorsey Brothers, There Are Such Things. Frankie Carl, Sunrise Serenade. Joe Stafford, The Nearness of You. Louis Armstrong, St. Louis Blues. Sarah Vaughan, Street of Dreams. The Dukes of Dixieland, When You're Smiling. Rosemary Clooney with Tenderly. Duke Ellington, Mood Indigo. Eddie Duchin, Time on My Hands. And Walter Houston, September Song. Lots of really nice stuff on there. The Walter Houston September Song was a standout for me, like just a really sort of vintage recording, but they're all great. You know, Duke Ellington, Rosemary Clooney, Sarah Vaughan, Louis Armstrong, you know, it's awesome. And then finally, on the compilation front, there are a whole set of albums on the New World Records label that I got at a live. It was the Westchester University Music Library was having. They were dumping a lot of vinyl, and this was, I don't know, maybe like 20 years ago. They had a sale, and you could go into their music library, and you know, stuff was like probably like $1 an album, if I remember. So I got a whole stack of these albums that were on New World Records, and these are very vintage early recordings of things, and they have excellent liner notes and like a gatefold covers. I'm reluctant to get rid of them, but I have to save space, and they might have a little bit of trade-in value. I haven't really priced them, but I'm going to start ripping these. So the first one is called Where Have We Met Before? Forgotten Songs from Broadway, Hollywood, and Tin Pan Alley. And these go pretty far back, but let me tell you what's on this album. Frank Luther, Arden and Omen Orchestra with Will Be the Same. Claire Hanlon, Fred Waring and his Pennsylvanians with You Forgot Your Gloves. Ethel Schutte, Paul Small, George Olson's Orchestra, and So to Bed. Frank Luther, Leo Reisman's Orchestra, How Do You Do It? Frank Luther, Leo Reisman's Orchestra with Riddle Me This. And Smith Ballou, Victor Young's Orchestra, Where Have We Met Before? Nice song. Frank Munn, Arden and Omen Orchestra, Let's Call It a Day, another great song. Ramona, Paul Whiteman's Orchestra, Are You Making Any Money? Lou Sherwood, Eddie Duchin's Orchestra, Coffee in the Morning, Kisses in the Night. Joey Nash, Richard Himber's Orchestra, What Can You Say in a Love Song? Jack Leonard, Tommy Dorsey's Orchestra, That Lucky Fellow. Judy Garland with George Stoll's Orchestra, Boys and Girls Like You and Me. Jane Harvey, Benny Goodman's Quintet with Only Another Boy and Girl. Jan Clayton, Nobody Else But Me. Lewis Lee, Mark Dawson, Can't You Just See Yourself? So you've got a lot of famous songwriters on here, familiar names, and some unfamiliar names, but you know, popular names coming up like Jerome Kern, Oscar Hammerstein, Richard Rodgers, Cole Porter, and on and on. So nice compilation on Discogs. You can grab the cover art and you can actually see the liner notes. So I figured, like, let's just go and rip it, and we'll give it away, trade it in. So this one I think I already did give away. So those are my compilations that I've been ripping. So I've been busy with that. I don't do it every day by any stretch, and there's just more and more albums that I want to rip. But it's a good process I have. I'm glad I'm doing it, and I'm saving a tremendous amount of shelf space. Now let me talk a little bit about the a couple new vinyl albums I got. I don't think I mentioned this one before, but I've been collecting some of these new In the Shrink Beatles reissues that came out around 2012 or so, and I'm filling in the gaps with that. So this was another one I bought, the Beatles Past Masters, and you can see it's a double album with covering, really spanning their whole career. And I have mixed feelings about this one. As far as number one, it's great. It's great to have all these songs. There's no issue with the songs at all. In terms of the quality of the pressing, it was good, very good, I would say. But I wasn't as blown away with the sound quality as I was with some of the other Beatles reissues, remasters that I've been picking up. I don't know why. I only gave this one listen, so I'm going to give it another chance. I'm not saying I was disappointed. I'm just saying I wasn't as impressed as I was with some of the other reissues. The ones that have stood out a lot as being pretty remarkable are Please Please Me and Beatles for Sale. And then maybe closely followed by Help and Rubber Soul and Hard Day's Night. The only one of their early albums I still need to get is With the Beatles, so I'll be getting that pretty soon. But anyway, Beatles Past Masters, I think I have a theory about why I wasn't quite as impressed with this particular record is because the tracks, you start with Love Me Do, the original single version, which sounded great, by the way, and you end with, Across the Universe and Let It Be, and then there's that kind of silly song, You Know My Name, Look Up the Number. But you're sort of the whole arc of their career, because these are like recorded in different sessions, maybe even different studios, but basically, over many years, there's not as much consistency. So I would imagine whoever mastered this might have had a little bit of trouble, putting these all on the same album and having kind of a consistent, sound stamp to it. That's just a theory of mine. So it's sort of variable, like some songs sound better than others. But you have to get this if you're a Beatles fan, because if you don't, you're missing on so many songs that don't appear elsewhere unless they're on the blue or red compilations or whatnot. But for example, She Loves You, you're not going to find that on one of the original albums, or I Want to Hold Your Hand, or I Feel Fine, or She's a Woman. Yes It Is a really nice deep track by the Beatles. I love that song. Day Tripper, I think, isn't that on the US Rubber Soul, but it's not on the UK, which was sort of the official releases. We Can Work It Out, Paperback Writer. I mean, these were singles, and they didn't show up on the albums. Rain, what terrific John Lennon song. Lady Madonna, The Inner Light. Hey Jude, the single version of Revolution. Get Back, Don't Let Me Down, Ballad of John and Yoko. Old Brown Shoe, a great George song. Across the Universe, Let It Be. It goes on and on. So Past Masters, I'm glad I have it. I wish I was a little more thrilled with it, but I'm going to give it a second and third listen, I'm sure. It's just like Hard Day's Night, maybe. Maybe this will be the case where it's a grower, where, Hard Day's Night reissue didn't impress me a whole lot the first time. I actually was disappointed, and then listened to it a second, third time, and I was very impressed with it. I'm like, okay, this is okay. This is fine. Okay, now here's another one that is maybe a bit of a grail album for me. I did find it used on CD at a very affordable price a few years back, and I had an earlier burned CD copy, but I always wanted to get the vinyl of this one. But you find these original in the record stores, and they're going to be pretty pricey, out of my league. But I saw this recent reissue on Jack White's label, and this is on Bizarre Industries, and it's Captain Beefheart Trout Mask replica, an avant-garde rock classic, in my opinion. Also an acquired taste, and she's not Captain Beefheart is not for everybody. This comes with, it's a very nice new version. I think this maybe goes back to 2019 or so. You can correct me in the comments. Here's your gatefold cover. Very sort of nice thick cardstock jacket, and you get the lyrics insert with the original artwork. And this is an album that I always just feel like I wanted to have it on vinyl. It sounds terrific on vinyl. It really sounded great. That last CD I got was really good too. But this one was, I'm so happy to get it. And it wasn't that expensive. It's a double album, and I got it new in the local record shop at Hop Fidelity in Westchester. And I got it for like, I think I paid like $30 for it, which is really, I mean, $30 isn't cheap. I mean, no vinyl is cheap new these days, but for a double album, that's pretty good. It was either $30, $32, something like that. I thought, I can't pass this up. So I was happy to get it. And it sounds terrific. If you don't know Captain Beefheart and Trout Mask replica, it's definitely an acquired taste, but there's something just sui generis and brilliant tour de force quality to it. It's just him doing his thing with his band, and there's something about like the whole is greater than the sum of the parts for sure. It's a very funny album. There's just many moments that just make me laugh out loud, and it's also kind of a cathartic type album. It's hard to explain. It's just its own thing. I guess you had to be there in the 60s, but you know, it was definitely of its time, but it also transcends its time. I love Trout Mask replica. It's not an album I listen to frequently, but and it's an album that when I first listened to it, I sort of hated it. It's one of those growers where like, I don't get this at all. This is just too bizarre. You know, based on what I had read about it previously, it didn't quite square with what I was hearing. But you know, I would come back to it every now and then when I, at some point when I got that CD, especially when I got that CD used, it really clicked for me. It's like, oh, that's what this album is. Like, I get it. I don't completely get it, but I get it. I sort of can see the vision of what he's trying to do here. And yeah, maybe someday I'll try to analyze it and we'll do a video on it. Now, another album I got, I was recently had a short vacation to visit my daughter in Vermont, and we were poking around towns in the area, and we went to this nice little record shop in Putney, Vermont. And it wasn't a huge store, but it's a nice store, and I found in the bargain bins crates section this. Just a collection of antiques and curios, Strawbs, live at the Queen Elizabeth Hall. I think I talked about this album on a previous video where this is an album that, one of the only Strawbs albums on vinyl that I didn't have. and I've been looking for it. Usually when I very rarely come across it in the record stores, and when I do, it's a little bit highly priced, so I never pulled the trigger on it. And finally I ordered a pretty affordable copy on Discogs. I think it cost like $8, but the irony was, like, the cover, the jacket looked great. This is that cover, but it was the wrong record. It was From the Witchwood, not just a collection of antiques and curios. I did not return it because I said to myself, keep looking. You're going to find this album eventually, and you can just kind of like put the new one in this very nice condition jacket. So maybe a month or two since then, I found it. I found it at this little record shop in Vermont, and I only paid $3 for it. I was thrilled, and the record quality is definitely VG plus. There's nothing really wrong. A little bit of surface noise, but other than that, it sounds fine. And I didn't even give it a deep clean, but it's perfectly acceptable. The cover was beat up. The jacket had lots of ring wear, bumped edges, fraying, and everything. So I just took the old album and put it with this one, and now I have a nice copy of just a collection of antiques and curios. This is early Strawbs. The band lineup was Dave Cousins, Tony Huber, Rick Wakeman, Richard Hudson, and John Ford. Produced by Tony Visconti, and it features these tracks. Some of these tracks not familiar to me at all. Martin Luther King's Dream is familiar. That's a Dave Cousins song. And then there's this long suite on side one called Antique Suite, featuring The Reaper, We Must Cross the River, Antiques and Curios, and Hey, It's Been a Long Time. A 12-minute, 13-second song. And that one wasn't very familiar to me at all, so it was really cool to hear it. And then Temperament of Mind, which is a Rick Wakeman track, a 5-minute song. Wakeman is featured pretty prominently, and didn't he leave Strawbs right after this? I believe that's the case. He went on to join Yes and went on to great fame and fortune. Side 2 features Fingertips, a song by Cousins, another song I was not very familiar with. Song of a Sad Little Girl, which I was familiar with because a couple of these tracks appeared on the great A&M compilation, Best of Strawbs, I think it's called. So I did know that one. And then Where's This Dream of Your Youth, which I think appears on another Strawbs album. And this is a 9-minute, 10-second, like long, jammy version of that, which is a lot of fun. So vintage. Late 60s, I think. Recorded July 11th, 1970. Great addition to the collection. I'm really happy to have it. Let's turn now to some Tidal streams, things I've been listening to, stuff that's come out recently, and I'll give you a little sense of that. So let me go back. I've been listening to a lot of Robert Lamm solo material. So he's been, most of his catalog you can get streaming. He's also been releasing some single tracks. So there was a track called The Rhythm of Your Heart, which just came out. Tougher Than These Times just came out. And let's see what albums I've been listening to by him. And these are a little hard to find on CD, but I pretty much listened to everything available on Tidal by him that I don't have already. Living Proof, which came out in 2012. The Bossa Project, which is all bossa nova style stuff, came out in 2008. Leap of Faith, a live album, live in New Zealand, which came out in 2005. Too Many Voices, which came out in 2004, and Subtlety and Passion, which came out in 2003. And those are all like sort of within the last 25 years albums that he's done. He's a couple earlier ones on there too, which I didn't listen to lately. But Robert Lamm, probably my favorite member of Chicago. I love his songwriting. I love his keyboard work. I love his voice. I love his attitude. Uh, and honestly, these albums are worth exploring if you're a Chicago fan, because I find the music, it seemed to me like in the later day Chicago catalog, his contributions have been pretty minimal, but he's putting out a lot of his own music on these solo albums, and I think that's where he seems to be more active and more interested, and the music's more interesting than the stuff he was doing with Chicago. It's like almost like Chicago pays the bills, and then he can just do what he wants to on these solo albums. And some of them, do have horn parts, and some of them even sound like it might be Jimmy Pankow doing the horn charts. I'm not sure, but like lots of good stuff. Lots of good stuff. The bossa nova stuff is really cool. It's just interesting mixes. I recommend it if you're a Chicago and Robert Lamm fan. So, been listening to that, and I listened to Bill Quist, Piano Solos of Eric Satie. That's a Windham Hill, an early Windham Hill record, one that I would like to find on vinyl or even CD, but they're a little hard to find. One of these days it'll turn up, but you can stream it, which is fine. Also listened to the Beach Boys, All Summer Long on Tidal, 1964 album. Great summer-themed album, and it makes me want to listen to Endless Summer, which I'll probably listen to like today or tomorrow or this weekend. Johnny Cash, Songwriter. This is an album that just came out in 2024, and I think this is stuff that he cut earlier, and 1993. These are 11 demos that were recorded in Nashville during a period where he was between record contracts. So this is from the vaults. Lots of interesting stuff on there, and I enjoyed that listen. Jackson Browne has a live album out called The Road East, live in Japan, which was always fun. He's always fun to listen to. He's a great live performer. I listened to Mahler Symphony No. 5 with Michael Tilson Thomas and the San Francisco Symphony. This was a good stream. Sound quality on these Michael Tilson Thomas Mahler albums is incredible. And they've issued these on SACD. You can even get them in a box set, but it's a little out of my price range. But I don't, there's no definitive versions of Mahler, but these are like, if you want some of the best sounding, just in terms of like sound quality, like check those out. They're really good. Also listen to a new live 1971 Chicago release of Saturday in the Park. I just listened to that this morning. Father John Misty has an album out. I guess, what's the name of this album? Greatest Hits. I Followed My Dreams and My Dreams Said to Crawl. So I listened to a couple tracks from that and they sound good. Also listened to George Winston's 2022 album called Night. Interestingly, he covers one of my favorite Laura Nyro songs, He's a Runner. And Bill Callahan has a live album out called Resuscitate. Bill Callahan was originally recorded under the name Smog, and he's had a long solo career since then. He's got cool stuff, and this was great. Just listening to it today, it sounds really good. So when I saw that the Father John Misty had a new album out, it sent me down to the record stacks and I pulled out Pure Comedy and gave it a listen. Haven't listened to this in a few years, and this is really a terrific album. Like, it sounds great. This it came out in 2017, I think April 2017, and this is like, to me, it sounds like an album is supposed to sound. And by that I mean an album where the songs really cohere, where they relate to one another. We could call it a concept, where this collection of songs feels like it belongs together, and it's making some kind of a statement. It has something to say. It's beautifully sung. The band sounds really good, and highly recommend this. Pure Comedy by Father John Misty. It's great album cover art too. So that's most of what I've listened to lately. I think I've left some things out, but that's I've waxed on long enough about my listening habits. What have you been listening to? If you have any reactions to some of these records, any comments, would love to hear it. And I hope you like and subscribe, and come back soon. Thanks.